Hockey, yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Indeed, it is Judd's Hockey Show, the once-a-week extravaganza, at least, where we actually have a full-strength lineup. It is Judd, it is Jessi Pierce, Bardown, Beauties, of course, AJ Fredrickson. Jessi, first of all, I like the pennant, the Vikings pennant. That's new.
That is new.
You've changed things up. The background's changed up. What happened?
My mom is, I don't know if she thinks she's on her way out the door or what, but she finally parted ways with some of her most coveted sports memorabilia, which includes about I know you'll like this one, a dozen bobbleheads that the Wild used to give out, a whole bunch of different Wild stuff. This pennant, however, signed by Oscar Reed, signed by Paul Krause, a bunch of old school Vikings, so she lives in International Falls where Bronco Nagurski's from. And the Vikings at that time had gone up there when she was, I think she said, a junior or senior in high school. So this would be 79 or 80. They came up there. She met a bunch of them. And then my dad she got the pennant, got it signed. And then my dad ended up golfing with a bunch of those legends as well. And so he had some of them, like Oscar Reed's technically on there twice.
That's okay.
Awesome. Just because she wanted to have them like still on there. But yeah, it's nice. I figured I should toss on some Viking stuff once in a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No one-trick pony.
And, mom just might be being nice, too, because I hate to hear that a person who graduated high school in 79 might be on her way out.
I know, right? I was like,
I graduated 9 years after that or so. So, let's not be assuming that mom is dying here.
That's what she said. Those were her words. She's like, yeah, I don't know. It probably seems like I'm dying. I'm like, yeah, because she loves this stuff. She had her whole box of Minnesota Wild ticket stubs, which you can't get anymore. Those are just incredible.
I miss ticket stubs, you guys.
I looked at, so they were season ticket holders for a while. Great seats.
They were.
Row 13, section 105, seats right on the end. They were given a book of Stanley Cup playoff tickets, just in case.
Yeah.
They made it for that row. We're talking 100 level. Again, 13 rows up from the blue line, $97 per ticket.
Still.
That is upper row pricing, I think, these days. And that's that was for a first round playoff.
That's remarkable. What year? Do you remember?
I think it was 20 or 2008 maybe.
Okay.
Because they were ticket holders from 2000, from the first year all the way up until
Jessi's parents were rolling in the dough.
No, I don't know. I mean, they didn't pay for my college, so that's where my college tuition fund went, clearly, priorities.
Iowa State. How much does Iowa State cost?
$26,000 a year.
Oh my
for
God.
Out of state. Yeah.
Well, and we don't have, and here's what amazes me. As far as I know, we don't have reciprocity with Iowa.
We don't. Illinois and Minnesota don't. And the amount of Minnesota and Illinois kids that go to Iowa State is incredible.
I know.
Absolutely incredible.
I don't know why we don't have that, though, because it's with Wisconsin. So, why wouldn't you have it? And yeah, Ames is like a suburb of here now. Anyway, I digress. Cool pennant. Thank Mom. The Wild, which plays tonight as they continue a 7-game road trip, which makes zero sense. I did ask finally. I said, "Is the X booked? Is there something going on? Why would you play 2 home games and 7 consecutive road games?" And the response was, "No, there was nothing that we couldn't have worked around. The league just did this," which I think is ridiculous. Nonetheless, 3-0-2 so far. They play tonight, Tuesday night in Florida against the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers. Jessi, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts, takeaways from a small sample size, but nonetheless a team that got off to a terrible start last year, swore they wouldn't do that again, and so far are living up to that of getting off to a far stronger start?
I mean, you got to start with the goaltending. We're going to still be happy on the Gus bus, right? He's got 4 starts, looking good, named the NHL's 3rd star. Obviously, goalie goal. We love it. We're driving the bus. And he's looking like he has the bounce back year. Now, again, still a small sample size, 5 games. And to be honest, it's against teams that aren't exactly in the playoff picture more than likely, right? Seattle and Columbus and St. Louis. You're not looking, Winnipeg, they're doing better than they expected. But this rest of the road trip here, I think, is much more telling. You've got the defending Cup champs tonight. Then you go to Tampa Bay. Then you've got the Flyers, and you've got Pittsburgh, which will be a big night for Marc-Andre Fleury. But all in all, they've been good. I mean, I'm happy with it. Again, to have a 5-point game, or 5 opening point streak.
Yeah,
that's
point
what we're
streak.
going
Yeah,
with. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
And they've been gone for too long. I haven't paid attention.
Well, I hate the schedule. I bleep and hate this. This is stupid. They have opened so many times with like a home game and then 5 days off. Also stupid. But why are you sending a team, especially in a year where February, you're basically going to shut down the league for the Four Nations? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Then March, I don't know how you're going to collaborate with the high schools or the state tournaments because that's going on at the same time. Plus, PWHL also has a game during that weekend of the boys state tournament. So it'll be incredibly interesting to watch. But I'd start with Gus, and then you look at how the team's performing without Jared Spurgeon and without Ryan Hartman, even, who was off to a good start before he's been injured the past 2 games here. So I think all in all, there's nothing to really gripe about. I'm excited to see them actually get tested, as I mentioned, in the upcoming games, but I've been satisfied. They're getting the points. They're getting some wins, and Kirill Kaprizov looks happy and normal, which I absolutely love too.
My biggest thing, besides like the goaltending, is probably the fact that it looks like there's 2 lines that are producing on a night in, night out basis. And, it's against bad teams. But the fact is they're getting points against those bad teams, which I think a lot of the times last year they were dropping a lot of those games and they just weren't able to muster up even an overtime loss or a shootout loss. The top 2 lines, it's a start to depth. Like you're no longer just like the shallow end of the kiddie pool where it's like it's Kirill Kaprizov and that's really about it. Now it looks like you have a 1A, 1B type of situation where the other team actually has to, I guess, take notice when a guy not wearing 97s on the ice, which is a nice breath of fresh air. It's cool to see that if they have to have, believe it or not, Kirill Kaprizov does have to take time off on the ice. He doesn't play a full 60 minutes.
He did. He's not. It was incredible.
What was that, like 29,
28? I think close to 28.
That would have made a defenseman blush. Sorry, H. Go ahead.
You're fine. Believe it or not, he has to take time off. He doesn't play the entire game. So it's nice when he's not on the ice to still have that light at the end of the tunnel saying, like, you know what? This secondary line, they might be able to do something. They're probably going to generate some chances. And even we've seen it where maybe they go down a man for 2 minutes. Jacob Lauko, he's been generating some offense off the shorthanded opportunity. So that's my biggest takeaway, is that they have probably had a little bit more depth. And I know that word has eluded this team for a long time here, but they've had a little more depth here through the first 5 games of the season.
Both of those points are great, so I'll pass on those. I'll take special teams. The power play is tied for 4th, 31.3%. The power play, and Columbus is bad, but the power play goal with a 2-man advantage on Saturday night, I absolutely loved. John Hines bangs a timeout, gets the top line rest, gets the top power play unit rest, more importantly. They come out and immediately score. The power play looks crisp. It looks good. The penalty killing gave up some goals early on. Now, it was a dumpster fire. I think it was 3rd from last season. So it was a dumpster fire, inexcusably bad, partially because the goaltending and Fleury especially was bad on the penalty kill. But they've gotten improved themselves in the last couple of games, you guys. They are now tied for 20th, which compared to last year is good. 75% kill rate. So special teams, I mean, this might make sense, it might not, but I feel like what we're seeing right now is a team that looks far more organized than it did a year ago at this time, when they basically sabotaged any chance of being a playoff team because they dropped so many points, right? And they just look bad. Now Gustavsson's default here a year ago, because as Jess has talked about, turns out he came in, we signed that contract, came back out of shape, not really prepared to play, and it was evident from day one. This guy's in shape. It now makes sense that he showed up sort of pissed off at training camp, because Jessi, you told me about that. You're like, the first Gus, when Gus talked to us the first time, it was nothing like him. He was really short. And I went back and watched it on Sunday, because it's like, oh my God, he was not, So the fact that he has decided to take the season seriously is huge. But, special teams is big here. And if the penalty kill, let's say they can get to 15th. Like they don't have to be great, but let's say they can get to 15th, and the power play should be good and has been good. I think that takes you a long way towards grabbing points as they're doing right now, as opposed to a year ago, when I don't know if they just tuned Dean out or what, but there feels like there's far more organization here than there was last season at this time, Jess.
Yeah, and I think it's because they're coming in knowing that last year was embarrassing, frankly. I think Ryan Hartman said it best at the end of the year, how I would have wanted to play us because we were that bad, like he's like, it was just a bad team. They just didn't, I don't want to say they gave up hope, right? Because they're still very competitive athletes at the highest level, but it was a very different. So I think this year they were so determined to come out and play hard. And then I even go back to the beginning of training camp when John Hines was calling them out after day one. Bill Guerin called them out after day one, saying, we need to be harder. We need to be better out of the gates. And, I think they took that seriously. Again, there's been some very hard-driven, fast-paced practices on days where they probably would have normally taken it off or done an optional skate or something like that. So I think collectively as a group from John Hines on down, the team has really picked themselves up by their bootstraps, and they know they have to work. That's the thing. This team
Which is an
cannot
incredible
rest
statement.
on talent. Yeah, you have to
But
work.
that's an incredible statement to make. How many guys on this team have the talent?
Yeah.
97 does. But like, that's an incredible indictment of
They
those
don't have
guys.
the talent to win on talent alone.
Yeah,
They,
you don't have
but I mean, they don't even come close to qualifying.
right.
No.
And I think last year they were incredibly soft and they didn't know how to change that. And yeah, I think your word, Jessi, is 1,000% straight, dead on. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for them.
Right.
They were out of shape in Gus's case. They were not prepared. And you had guys, I mean, how the hell does their third line last year basically throw their sticks out there and say, "Oh yeah, we're pretty good hockey
Right.
players." You're NHL players, you're not good enough to do that.
And that's where I still need to see some improvement. I'm still not seeing what I need from Marcus Foligno or Yakov Trenin for that
I
matter,
was going to
right?
ask you about that. Yes.
That's my one kind of area of criticism. Again, I'm happy with how they're looking. I'm excited to see that continue against some tougher competition, but mostly I need to see those guys in particular step up. We've been saying it from the beginning of the season that we haven't been that impressed, that third line's been very quiet, that the physical presence hasn't been there. Against Seattle is probably the only game that I remember seeing Marcus Foligno start laying out those hits and showing that physicality, that presence. And Yakov Trenin, that's what he's supposed to do too. So for him to be so quiet and so, sluggish, he is slow. Like he is like cement shoes out there sometimes.
Not good.
I think there's got to be a reckoning at some point that these guys have to step up and play their role as kind of that identity line that I think it's intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see if they do flip that, because it seems like the other stuff that John Hines has now been able to implement over a full off season and a full training camp. Like, I was skeptical about it. I didn't think maybe that he was the right choice for the hire last year, but I don't think he was the wrong choice either. I was very like, I kind of want to wait and see. And so far it's a very short sample size, but the pieces that are clicking, like the system that he has in place looks like it's working. And I want to see, once he has that third line, also not buying in. I'm sure they've bought in, but it more just like operating on where they're expected to. I think the lineup might be like having that physical presence. They might be an actual team. Like they might be, I'm not going to say dangerous, but they're going to be well above what I think a lot of us were expecting, because if the scoring is there, you need that physical, defensive kind of lockdown checking-ish line. We just haven't seen that yet from Marcus Foligno. And frankly, Trenin hasn't done it yet. Like he was signed to be that guy. I understand penalty kills is the thing too, but I don't know. I'm still not impressed by his game so far. I know I brought that up, I think, last week, but
yeah, I think, but it's still a problem though. That is kind of the one consistent problem that they've had. They're not a complete team. You want to be rolling on all four lines. You're rolling on three, right? Like you're literally missing that final piece. And again, it's supposed to play that role that, oh no, we don't want to go up against that third line. We're going to put them against some of their other guys. It's frustrating to watch when you know it's there, especially from Foligno. Again, we haven't seen enough from Trenin. I don't know how elite that is going to be, but for Marcus Foligno, and no one's harder on himself than him, but it needs to be better.
So from Saturday's game, so it was Hustadinov, Trenin, Foligno, right? Because Hartman didn't play.
Right.
yes.
You had that line officially, according to the box score, had one hit or two hits, both by Trenin. So like Foligno didn't have a hit, and so yeah, you're exactly right. And I don't know if he's rusty or what. I am afraid at the end of the day though that is two really slow wingers now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you're right. I mean, Trenin, I watch him skate. He doesn't unless there's something more, like unless there's a gear he's not at yet, which this is a league where guys stay in shape year round, or they're supposed to. But that just looks like a line that is really slow, and that's the issue now today. You can't. It's not like the old days, right? Where it's like, oh, he's slow, but once he catches up to you, he's gonna hit you. You got to catch up to guys. So yeah, I'm concerned. Speaking of concerned, Jessi, what is and I think we talked about this last week, but it remains an issue, and this is, to what you said earlier, significant. Jared Spurgeon, what do we know about this? I mean, I saw Bill Guerin's rationale that this is all part of a process, and sorry if I'm plugging my nose a bit and saying this doesn't feel like part of a process, because you didn't ordinarily you warn us about this.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the continued absence of a guy who, again, for his age and size, what was it, a hip and a back?
Yeah.
And the hip scares me. Patrick Kane, you look at hips. When hips go, it takes sometimes an act of God to try to get them back.
I mean, that's everything to a hockey player. It's your hips and your legs, right? I mean,
Right.
that's everything. Yeah, I was there at open practice last week when Bill Guerin and John Hines spoke about Spurgeon, and they had said, yes, it's related to the surgery we want to take. Although, when we directly said, so it is an injury, or it's no, I'm not going to say that. Like, well, what is it then, right? So it's seemingly very much related to the surgeries he had last year. They're just mostly resting. So I followed up with John Hines and I said, what does this time away from the team look like for Jared Spurgeon then? Is he just strictly forbidden from getting up and working out? Is he getting on the ice? It sounds like today he did get on the ice for the first time alone, and then he still has to work his way back with the group before he's able to be game ready. The hope is for him to join at the latter end of this road trip, which we're getting there. I don't know if that means Tampa. I don't know if that means Philly. But even then, I don't know that he's adjusting right into the lineup. It's very concerning because, as we mentioned last week, before we even knew that it was directly related to the surgeries, you're going to have to look at load management. You're going to have to look at time management because his size alone does not permit him to stay out of the way of getting injured and getting hit. And he is going to get hit in those positions. So, I mean, right now they've navigated it okay. And, I think John Merrill, I got to give him a little bit of credit. He hasn't looked atrocious, which I absolutely love. And Damon Hunt has stepped in as needed. But you have to figure out what you're going to do with Spurge, because you don't want to put him in a position where he's going to have to consider early retirement because it's an injury that just can't get through. So you want him to play. You need him out there. He is an important piece to this team.
Right.
But he's not going to be durable enough, I don't think, to play an entire season every game, because now you're getting into the brunt of it too, where it's every other night. It's not, I mean, a hockey season is very unforgiving to injured players, as we've seen across the league. And unfortunately for Jared Spurgeon, and you hate news like this for him because he worked so hard. He was a guy that came into camp very in shape, and he was from the get-go, right? I mean, he put everything he could into it to avoid a situation like this. So the hope is that it is minor and they are just being extra cautious and trying to avoid any sort of setback. But my gut is saying this is going to be something that is nagging him throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
To your point about John Merrill and even Damon Hunt, the fact that I really haven't noticed them, I think says enough about how well they've been filling in that role. And it's not filling in his role per se, but just slotting in, eating some minutes, and essentially not sinking the ship. Being able to just fill in and kind of just sneak under the radar, fly under the radar. That's all I want from them, because we already saw this last year where Brock Faber, Jake Middleton, Jonas Brodin, and Zach Bogosian are on that top two pairings. Those guys, for the most part, we've seen can eat those minutes, especially Brock, who night in, night out still amazes me that he's able to just willy-nilly, hey, mark me down for 26, 27 minutes, no issue. I'll be back out. And he'll do it tonight, and then he'll do it again on Thursday when a day's rest is just fine for him. So, obviously, you're seeing defensive breakdown at times, but for the most part, John Merrill, Damon Hunt, they've filled in just fine. Long run, though, the hip, back, leg, all that stuff for a hockey player is just so crucial. I'm concerned. I don't like that we were told and led to believe essentially everybody's fine. He's been taking care of his body. Recovery went well. And then, we have a sniff of a season for him. And all of a sudden it's like, well, actually it was part of the recovery plan and all this stuff. It's a good pivot. It's a good PR pivot. I don't know if I necessarily believe it, though.
Is it a good PR pivot? It's 2 games in, right? He played 2 games. I just it is what it is. And look, a back or hip at his age is a problem. Like, take one of them away. So is it a good pivot, or is this the reality? And it just feels like, from what Jessi is saying, that it's going to have to be managed all season, if not for the rest of his career. Okay, let's go down that path. Can he play back-to-back games ever? Like, can he play, like, let's say he comes back, can he play 4 games and then he has to miss 3? Like, I just, this feels like an inevitability of, he's not a young man. And by the way, when he got hurt last season in training camp, Jessi, against the Blackhawks, that was a shoulder. So you're like, okay, that sucks. But it might have to be surgically repaired, but it should be okay, especially in 2024 medicine. But a hip and a back came out of nowhere, which obviously had been building. And so you just have to wonder, if our expectation should completely change now of what that blue line is going to look like. And if that's the case, I think you got to look at Hunt, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it goes back to my early season prediction. We're getting 30 games out of Damon Hunt, and that's looking pretty okay right about now. No, I mean, you also, it's funny because I've been looking back at Zach Parise and how he rebounded from this, and it's obviously a different situation because he played a very different role. And when he came back, he's all of a sudden a third line forward who's not seeing that much ice time anyway. So it's hard to compare, right, as far as their comebacks. And Zach's a little bit bigger, frankly, than Jared, but he played in those dirty areas and was getting constantly smoked in the back and in the hip. And that's, a little bit of it. But yeah, I think defensively, you got to hope that John Merrill and Damon Hunt can, like AJ said, continue to eat those minutes and at least be there for those short shifts and shut down a little bit and not start making egregious turnovers. Again, tonight will be a big test. They're getting Tkachuk back tonight from Florida. Great timing. I think Barkov's pretty close to getting back to. I didn't see if he's in tonight. Great.
No.
He is.
Oh, no. He's not in tonight?
Barkov's not. Barkov shouldn't be in. Tkachuk
but he's close.
Be in,
Tkachuk
but he's very
in.
close.
Yes. So,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Tkachuk.
So you look at the teams, again, that are going to be very offensively capable. You need your bottom pair defensemen to be usable or viable.
Yeah,
Value.
playable. I mean, John Merrill
Playable?
at times last year was not playable.
No, like John Merrill looked like he played for the other team sometimes, and it was frustrating to watch. But
Spurgeon being out, though, does accelerate one player probably above where he should be ideally. Like Spurgeon, Middleton, Brodin, Faber, Bogosian, Chisholm, right? Or something like that. That was pretty like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. But now it feels like you're going to be right now elevating a guy who you're like, okay, we're going to be asking, like Brock, I trust completely. Brodin, I actually trust almost completely. I mean, the other concern is, and I don't know if the advanced metrics back me up here, it feels like Middleton and Spurgeon, that Jake is a far better player with Jared than if you take him away from Jared. And that, I don't know that if that's true. It just feels that way. But I mean, when Jared Spurgeon is playing at 100%, there's no question he is a very good player. Like, I'm not doubting that at all. So it feels like that hurts.
I feel like there's to that point, Judd, I think there's probably a comfort for Jake Middleton. He gets to kind of go back and play the role that maybe he was more accustomed to. Jared Spurgeon takes that spotlight. Not to say that him and Brock don't, but him and Brock bring out a difference in each other if they're ever together, right? I think it's just with Jared, he almost has to play that very secondary role and kind of the protector role almost, just so Jared can do his thing. It's interesting. It's again, such an unfortunate situation, and hopefully things can be resolved. It has that overhanging cloud that this is not going to be a great year for Jared Spurgeon again.
Let me ask you this. If you find out the news, like he's just done immediately, like LTIR or whatever, he's got to be out the year. Do you rely on Damon Hunt or a John Merrill or whatever? Or do you, I saw they already had scouts at a couple games over the past like week or two. Do you make a trade for some sort of, I mean, you expect Zeev Williams probably going to come up after the year.
I'd prefer not to make a trade.
Like, even if it's just a guy to just fill that out that maybe is slightly
Can
more
Hunt
reliable.
play? I mean, just thinks he can, right?
I
Jessi?
think, from
personally,
what,
I'd rather have Hunt.
yeah, I'd agree.
I want to hear your guys' opinion though.
I mean, Damon Hunt was very close. It was a numbers game as to why he didn't make the roster out of camp. Frankly, from what I could tell, I think they were very impressed with him, and I thought he seemed like a very capable defenseman. It's similar. You got to give some of these young guys a shot. Like, I need to see that. I don't know. I got to see him at the NHL level. I don't like judging a player based on what they can do in the American Hockey League. It's just not there for me, right? I mean, Jesper Wallstedt, though, I would like to see that be a little bit better than it's been. But it's very hard, I think, to judge because the NHL is night and day from the American Hockey League. I don't hate the idea of exploring it only because I'm concerned about the blue line depth in general, whether that's this year or next year, just moving forward, right? Yes, William is going to be huge addition, but that still leaves you kind of heavy up front and versus your bottom pairing. I still don't have full faith in that. Given, Jonas Brodin also getting older. I trust him and I adore him too, but he's kind of on that older spectrum as well. And Zach Bogosian is very much too. So I don't hate the idea. I don't want to do a trade, I guess, necessarily, but I think exploring some options, they're going to have to do it eventually because their blue line depth just isn't there this year and in the next year or two.
Yeah, we'll talk about Wallstedt start in a second. But before we do that, Grill Masters, I want to talk to you. So, Jessi, get Mike and tell him, because if he likes to grill, be very excited about our friends at Stoked Barbecue Pellets, a company based and operated right here in our fantastic state. Stoked is the premium pellet that cooks anything you throw on the grill or smoker to delicious perfection. You can find Stoked at all 22 Fratelloni's hardware and garden stores. Perfect for pellet grills and pellet smokers, but also ideal for all kinds of grills. Stoked barbecue pellets, you can find those. You can find 50 count fire starter buckets. You can find 4 count fire starter bags and barbecue caddies, all again at Fratelloni's hardware and garden stores. There's 22. So don't go with the big guys, go with Stoked, and you will be very, very happy. Jesper Wallstedt.
First of all, I can grill. I just would like that to be known.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sell you short. I just thought your husband, husbands like to grill.
Unbelievable.
Dawn grills, so I don't grill. I'm not a big fire guy. I don't like fire.
I've met Mike once. I bet you he burns every single hamburger. Jessi probably cooks it to perfection.
Wow.
Mike it's probably hockey pucks when it leaves the grill.
Mike
exactly.
Strays.
Yeah. I'm working the grill out at Loggers all summer.
That's true. You are
a
woman of many talents. Serving up beers to Dino and the hockey players who like to golf because that's all they do all summer.
Exactly.
But anyway, okay, so man or woman, if you are a barbecue grill master or Mrs. Stoked Barbecue Pellets, Fratelloni's hardware and garden stores. There's 22. Check them out. Okay, I'm covered now. I didn't offend anyone with that statement. Jesper Wallstedt, gives up 12 goals in his first 2 games playing for the Iowa Wild. Now, I didn't see a second of these. I saw the stats. My observation would be this. The kid's been put in a rough situation. He thought he was going to make the big club. He was here for the start of the season. Hell, when they played the game against Seattle, he backed up Fleury while Gustavsson was in the press box. And then Gustavsson starts to play well. And now they're playing Gus constantly. And then they get the Spurgeon injury, the Hartman injury. And because they're cap strapped, they have to make creative accounting moves. So Wallstedt goes back to Des Moines and starts to play for that team. I wonder if this is something to be like, ooh, 12 goals in 2 games, or, oh, this kid is like, his head's on a swivel as far as, thought I was going to be here, now I'm going to be there. And I am curious what the plan is here. Because, like, we knew that he would go to Iowa and play at times. Jessi, I don't think we thought it would be like this, though, and Gus has played fantastic. So I am curious what the plan now is for Wallstedt, given Gus's start and given the fact that Fleury is, untouchable as far as he's got that job, if nothing else, as the backup.
Right. I mean, should clarify, Jesper, 12 goals in just 5 periods and on back-to-back nights too, right? So, I mean, all that into consideration, I suppose, just a little bit. But yeah, we had talked about the mental strain that this is going to have on all the goalies. I mean, you even look at Filip Gustavsson, who had a great debut, and then he goes and sits in the press box the next game. So, I mean, it's just kind of that mental gaming that's going to happen. Now, the organization has always been very open in saying, we will ride the hot hand. And right now, Filip Gustavsson is your hot hand. I mean, you're seeing him go against Florida. Means Marc-Andre will probably play in Tampa, and we all know he'll play in Pittsburgh next week, which means Gus will probably get the Flyers. But that was going to also be the challenge that you had with 3 goaltenders. How do you navigate that? Because they need to be playing. A goalie cannot be sitting on the bench that much. Right now, it'd be stupid to not have Filip Gustavsson starting the majority of your games. And again, looking at it, Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, is very okay being in the backup role, stepping in when he needs to. So really, I'm okay moving forward with this tandem, given that Filip Gustavsson can continue this rate of play and can continue to play at this level, right? We all saw last year he began to falter, and I think there's still time before we can fully say, yep, he is our true number one. But I don't think there's any harm in having Jesper down there. Yes, he's probably a little pissed off about it. Yes, he's probably like, this sucks again. But you're getting the game action then, at least. You are the guy down there. So I think that probably makes the most sense. Move forward with Gus and Marc-Andre until you can't anymore, until you decide that, hey, let's get some Jesper in some games. But hopefully that's down the road when you're in, either a full-time playoff position or you're needing to change one of the two. But right now I think your tandem is Fleury and Gus.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say it worries me at all, because to the exact point that you both just stated, I mean, he's a 21-year-old kid. He probably thought he's going to be up here with the big club for the entirety of the season, or like the majority of it, besides a few maybe different like weird spots. And then now he's back down there. I'm sure he's probably not thrilled about it. That's got to take a toll. That being said, goalie is probably the position where if I need mental fortitude, that's the one. So I would have loved to see him probably channel that. And you know what? I'm going to show them what they're missing out on. I'm going to shut these guys out, blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. It had box score wise, and to just, I didn't watch the games. But on paper, it doesn't look the greatest. He kind of got thrown down there, and it's very early action for him. So if this continues for the next week or two, then it's a concern. But yeah, exactly. But I would like to assume that it's more of just the mental. He expected to be on one side, and now, hey, he made the trip down I-94 essentially like 7 times in 1 week. 35, thank you. I
think on the West Coast. I think he actually,
they're on the road. I think.
I think he went out west and collapsed.
Okay,
maybe.
Well, then we don't have to worry about him wanting to, move out west then. So
I would like to see him play here, but if this is going to be the case, I'm with Jessi. Just give him the stability. Like don't be yanking him back and forth for occasional starts. If this is what your path is, I also think that this, if Gustavsson can put together, and it's 5 games in, so take this with a grain of salt. If Gustavsson can put together a good season, he becomes eminently tradable then, because he'll be going into the last year of his contract. Because you're not going to bring him. Well, I mean, I guess you could
look at you just still on the trade, Gus. Man, oh man.
Well, I guess you could bring him back again. Fleury's gone. You could try to play them both, but then Wallstedt you want to play. Well, I'm just always thinking ahead, and I'm also thinking that if I'm the Wild right now, I don't want to go get a defenseman. I don't want to go get a veteran. If Spurgeon can't play, let's try the kids out. Like, you got to try the kids at some point in time. And I feel like this team is run by a couple of guys, and I mean this is true of coaches across the board who like their vets, and I mean Dean did too. But you got Liam Ogren needs to play. Like, he just needs to play. And if the sacrifice is that Marcus Johansson was going to have a couple extra points on one night, then I'm like, yeah, but this is the time to find out. But on Gus, I think you need to create some stability here. Mm-hmm. So like this whole yo-yo thing, if you're going to ride the Gus bus, then just ride that and have Flower watch him play. And if he starts to struggle and you want to replace him or something, that's fine too. I got one more wild thing to throw at you. But before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends at Park Tavern, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad. St. Louis Park, located at the corner of Highway 7, Louisiana Avenue South. I've been talking to you for a while now about their Halloween party for both the adults and kids, October 26th, which includes a costume contest. Best couples costume, $300. give them a call on that, 952-929-6819. But now I want to talk to you about something that runs all throughout the winter and the fall, obviously, and that's their late night happy hour, 8 to close every night, at least in October. 8 to close every night, $1 off drinks, $2 off pitchers, and also food specials. So if there's a game on, heck, if there is a wild game on that you want to watch, then guess what? Park Tavern, which has all of the games, will have that. Again, located St. Louis Park, corner of Louisiana Avenue South and Highway 7. Check out Park Tavern. They always do a fantastic job. Community local bar that we all love. So Trennan doesn't look good. So here's my question. And I hope I pronounce his name right. Is Jacob, is it Lauko? Lauko. Is Jacob Lauko one of the biggest surprises as far as what the dude brings? He's had a couple breakaways. He sort of has the speed I thought Trennan might have. Like, and I have no idea, it's not sustainable necessarily, and he's a fourth line guy. But am I wrong to be pleasantly surprised by what he's done thus far?
I mean, did you know anything about it? Like, I don't think any of us really
I thought
knew
he was a
much
fourth
about
line
him coming
slappy who
in.
could fight
Yeah.
from the Bruins.
I mean, he was traded for Vinny Lettieri, and you kind of just,
Yeah.
I
But I
don't
mean,
think any of us had expectations, right? Like, I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, you're a fourth liner. Very pleasantly surprised. I love it.
But I
Plus
like
the
what he's done.
personality. Yeah. I think the speed is there because you were missing some of that speed. Vinny had it ups and downs a little bit last year, but once you got rid of Connor Dewar, because I think Connor Dewar was one of the quicker guys down on that fourth line too, you didn't really have a whole lot of speed there. And I think that Jakob Lauko does that. Plus he's got a great personality. I love it.
He does have a good personality.
He's
He
funny.
does.
He's his own person.
Yeah, I don't really care about that. I care about can you play hockey? I care about
Sound like my husband. He's like, oh, he's a good guy. I don't care. Can
yeah,
you
there's a
win?
lot of
Like,
good
I
guys.
don't-
Jessi, we can go. You know what? There's a lot of good guys and gals out there. That's not the point. The point is, can you play? And AJ, it looks to me like he is at least he's doing more than I expected. How about that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I think who does kind of care about him being a good guy or like a locker room guy? It's probably Bill Guerin, because we've seen him the past 2 seasons in a row going to trade or somehow acquire one of those, a good locker room guy, Ryan Reeves. Granted, he'd had like a couple kind of impressive goals at times, but for the most part, he's there for the locker room environment. Pat Maroon was brought in to be kind of that locker room environment and then maybe do some stuff on the ice before his trade out to Boston. Jacob Lauko, he looks like he is a guy who can perform on the ice and actually be effective, not just in a one-dimensional type of guy. He's got speed. The passing at times has been not the best, but
he's
shown that
guy.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't need to have that, but he does have kind of a shot on him too. But the personality-wise, that's going to save anything from, just trading for a guy just to trade for a guy. Like, this is it seems like a Bill Guerin kind of blueprint bottom barrel guy where he's there, he's effective to an extent, but he also is doing something off the ice, which is keeping probably a lighthearted, mood in the room at times. He's probably not afraid, I would assume, just coming from that Boston culture, get in a guy's face if needed. I'm not saying that he's like a captain type or whatever. I'm just saying he is probably more effective than we anticipated. A guy who got kind of not maybe thrown in for a trade, but acquired kind of haphazardly. A lot of people didn't pay too much attention to it. He's surprising me, and it's been kind of a delight so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he led in scoring in preseason. Yes, it was preseason, right? But I mean, he has that little bit of ability to put the puck in the net too. So I think anything that a fourth line can ever contribute or chip in, that's huge. And Lauko's the big part of that for the fourth line.
He looks right now more skilled than Trennan, which is not good really, but it's just the fact. And Trennan, and I don't know if he's not comfortable yet or what. But I mean, you talk about underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Trennan's picture right now in the dictionary.
What was you bringing this up a way to segue into when do you make the move of Lauko, Trennan flops from that?
Not yet. No. And look, the Lauko thing, I don't want to get over my skis because, we've seen those guys promoted. Hey, he's playing great. Let's put him on the third line. That's like, okay, that's not great. I've been pleasantly surprised by him, and Trennan, like Jessi said, just hasn't done a thing. And Foligno, I don't know if he's still. I mean, the thing we have to keep in mind, much like with Spurge, Marcus Foligno's beat to hell.
I was waiting for you to bring that one up.
Well, you can't help it. And again, do I think that Marcus Foligno is going out saying no hits? Okay, I'm fine. No, like certain guys care. Certain guys are talented and don't care. Foligno has some talent. He's not great, but he's got some talent. But there's never been a question about does he care? Like, he is captain material. So for him to be playing the way that he is, I'm just curious, is he, trying to ease back into things because he's coming back from injury? Or is there just a core problem now, literally, with him, where it's just not there consistently? Much like with football, this sport's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way around it. And like, Jared Spurgeon's been great for a long time, but he is a very diminutive human being who's not young now and, has obvious issues. Foligno's playing, and I think Marcus Foligno will try to play through. I mean, that's why when he's come out, Jess, I think he's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I've never questioned that dude.
Right.
But, when I see him play now, I'm like, I just wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds harsh, but I'm not even trying to be harsh. I'm
No,
empathetic.
I mean, yeah, and you're right. I think he will not admit to any of his weaknesses, right? That's just who he is as a person and as a player. I think the one reason that I feel like he probably is doing okay health-wise, he hasn't taken an optional skate yet. He hasn't missed a practice, right? You're seeing guys that have been doing that. Even Jonas Brodin has taken a seat on optionals, and Marcus Foligno has always been there. So that gives me hope that he's still pretty healthy, still pretty durable. But yeah, it's definitely something everybody has to keep an eye on and consider as to maybe why he's lessened his big booming role that he usually has.
Right. All right, guys, great stuff. We will do this again next Tuesday. Jessi, check her out, of course, on Bardown Beauties as well, and read her stuff, NHL.com. She covers the Wild and does an outstanding job. He's AJ. I'm Judd. We will catch you later on Judd's Hockey Show.